Mike, I hope you're having an awesome day. Welcome into the game at T-Town.
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good, man. We are excited to talk with you. Any thoughts about this Tua Tagovailoa injury? Any thoughts? Certainly we're all looking ahead to this LSU-Alabama game that really matters. I'm sure you guys are as well. What's the talk from your perspective?
Well, I'm not a doctor,
Sure,
but I'm good friends with a lot of them since I work at Pivotal Regional Medical Center as a spokesperson there and work with Ortho LA, which does the orthopedic work. And we had on Dr. David Elias last night, and he talked about the procedure and what it entails and kind of how it helps and the stabilizing of the ankle. But, he was also candid about it that, it's going to affect him, his mobility skills. It's not an instant heal. And when you got a sprained ankle, it's like a broke ankle. And so, there's some process there that will go through, still a few weeks away. I think the big thing you take out of it is one of Tua's strengths is his ability to move side to side, buy a little time, and find the receiver downfield. And that's going to be limited. That's going to have some effect on you as a player. That's just bottom line. And I know Glenn Logan, talking to him today with LSU, he brought up the fact it was 5 weeks before, his ankle finally healed. Like he said, that I really felt good. That week 3 and week 4, he was still struggling. He said, listen, I could play, but I didn't have that lateral movement skill. And so, going off of guys that have played with it before, Bobby had it. We talked about it last night with Doc. Bob had it also, and he told me it was basically a month. It was 4 to 5 weeks before that ankle really healed. Where, not that Bobby was a scrambler by any chance, but he said, trying to buy a little bit of time, you're looking for that element. So it's going to have a negative effect on Tua, but you can keep him clean in the pocket. It ain't going to make a heck of a lot of difference. My thing about it is that's been a problem for LSU to get pressure on the quarterback. It really has. All season long, it's been a problem getting pressure. And so just see how all this entails. But finally, they're starting to get a little bit healthy up front, too, now with Rashard Lawrence and Caleb Chase on and also Glenn Logan. But, that's tough news for Tua because, man, listen, I'm a big fan of his. I think the world of him as a player, as a person. And he's a signature player in this league, and you hate to see anybody have that type of injury. And listen, I think he's a tough guy, and he'll try to play through it. But when you hurt, that's nothing you can do about it. You just got to try to play through it and do the best you can. But it will limit his mobility skills. That's basically across the board. When you talk to players, coaches, doctors, that is all the given. Everyone says the exact same thing.
Mike, I want you to put your NFL draft evaluator hat on just for a minute. Tua's had some injuries. He's been stepped on. He's had the knee. He's had the different things. When you go through your evaluation and you're trying to project Tua Tagovailoa, does this impact his draft status at all? That maybe he is he's had quite a few injuries. Do you calculate that in?
Yeah, I think you always look into that. But in today's world of medicine, Ryan, those type injuries, it's not the same anymore. Say 20 years ago, or your daddy's college football or your grandpa's college football. They had it. You just didn't hear a lot about it back then. And so does it play a factor? I would say a small one. But, my team doctors, if I'm an NFL team, take a look at him and everything's good in April, it's not going to negatively affect him. It will be part of discussion, though. It will be part of that. I think when you're sitting around, doing those final grades on a player and looking at that top 5 or 6, and you're picking in that range from 1 through 5 and possibilities of either moving up or you have the top pick, it's part of discussion. But I don't think it's a major deal at all, as far as I'm concerned. I'm looking at the talent, and if my team doctors tell me, hey, he's good, everything's good with it, then it's rock and roll. I'm not overly concerned about it. I think sometimes you can get caught up with all this, with injuries and that sort of thing. And I've seen way too many times, people kind of get caught up. I look last year, Bosa, okay? He had an injury that knocked him out in October. Did that affect the 49ers from picking him with the second pick in the draft?
No.
None at all. So, again, if you healthy at that time, the doctors give you the 2 thumbs up, then it doesn't make a heck of a lot of difference one way or another. I look at Fournette, who had a history of high ankle sprain, hamstring. Didn't affect him. Look where Jacksonville picked him. And he played running back. So, again, it's all in the eye of the beholder. But it's not going to really negatively affect Tua at all.
All right, Mike, and the other part of the question is this. If you're a $35 million future, because right now I think your projection, a lot of people think that he'll be one of the top 2 or 3 picks in the NFL draft. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah. He's on today. If I were to put up a board, it's Tua and Chase Young from Ohio State. It's those guys 1, 2.
All right. So if you're a advisor, because Mike, you do this, and I know everybody looks at LSU and you give the fan answer, and I'm talking about, sure, he wants to play against LSU. If you're a $35 million player and you're 65, 70, 75%, would you run out there? Would you advise somebody to run out and get, probably your toughest opponent that you'll play all season, LSU? I'm
willing to bet he plays. I'm willing to bet a lot of my money he plays. No, listen, you're a competitor. Come on, what this game means, okay? It hasn't meant squat over the last few years because Alabama's beat them every year. But, for Tua, it means a lot. And he doesn't want to let his team down. As a competitor, you don't want to let the guys around you. When you got an injury, it's the worst feeling in the world, Ryan. Because you're away from the team, you can say, well, I'm with them. But, yeah, you're not practicing with them. You don't feel as though you're part of it. And I'm willing to bet you a lot of cash that Tua's out there playing against LSU. There is no doubt in my mind. Now, they got Tiger fans that don't believe that, but, they're delusional if they don't believe that Tua's going to be out there. Now, is he going to be 100%? No. That's not going to be the case. But he gives you the best chance to win. And I do know one thing, he's got the heart of a champ. He wants to be out there. It's almost like tag me. I'm ready to go back.
Well, and Mike, they'll have him.
Because Drew Brees is the same.
Sure.
Listen, my biggest comparison to him has been he's a lot like Drew. There's a lot of similarities between the two. In that they take this game serious. And, if it was up to Drew, he'd have played last week against the Bears. He didn't practice. He's that type of competitor. He wants to play. So to answer your question, he's going to play. And there's no one that can answer that question but Tua Tagovailoa. And I can give you his answer. He's going to play. That's just it. No, other people outside the realm might say, well, don't do it if you're 70% or whatever. I'm just telling you, being around athletes a long time, he's going to play.
Mike,
bottom line.
How does it impact Dave Aranda's game plan? Because we don't know a lot about Mac Jones. We know a little bit. We know he's not Tua Tagovailoa. He's the backup quarterback. But probably what he's going to bring to the table is probably going to be much different than what Tua Tagovailoa is going to bring to the table. Does that impact the preparation?
Ryan, has the passing game been the thing to beat LSU? Hell no. They've run the football down their throats. Bottom line. That's where they beat them. They ain't been throwing the ball. Now, last year they threw it. But that wasn't one of Tua's great games against LSU.
You're right.
He had a pretty good game, but it wasn't a great game. But what they did is they pounded them into the ground. They beat them at their own game. And so, first and foremost, playing Tua and him not being 100% does affect my game plan. But if I can't stop the run, guess what? It don't mean beans. That's how they're beating LSU. And listen, O told me this. The day after he took the job, we had a conversation, and he made this comment to me. He said, listen, this is pre-Tua now. He said, listen, what Alabama Alabama's got, he said, at the quarterback position, everybody keeps talking about quarterback here. And he said, listen, I agree, we need to get one. But he said, really, Mike, take a good look. How have they beaten us? They've beaten us in the trenches. And he said, Les, that was a big thing with him. We're gonna beat a more physical team. And he said, on that day, those days, they weren't. Alabama was. And he said, no matter who was at running back, it could be Darius or Leonard or whoever, it looked like a team picture every time they touched the ball for Alabama. So I think for Dave, first and foremost, is you got to stop the run. You got to put the emphasis on, hey, listen, if you're going to beat us throwing the football. You're not going to beat us running it, because that's how Alabama has beaten LSU. They've beaten it. They're more physical in the trenches. They haven't been able to match up front against Alabama. And so it makes a difference, but if you don't stop the run, you tread in water again. And I'm sure Nick will adjust his game plan where he has seen that has worked. So why wouldn't – it's like a fisherman. And you done fished in a hole before, you're not going back to the same spot. You can catch there.
Sure.
So you're going right back to it. So it does affect, because of the fact that Tua has a tendency to drift a little bit left or right, buy a little bit of time with his feet and sort of football. That's going to be affected by the ankle. But then I go back to it. LSU's strong point this year ain't rushing a quarterback. They haven't done that great. They've played pretty well against the run, and they've gotten better at that. But, I think these injuries and the fact that they haven't had that guy to be the pass rusher, I think is going to have a big influence. Just like I can flip it for Alabama. With Joe Burrow, Alabama doesn't have that guy that's going to maybe put that constant pressure on Joe. And so you got to win the battle up front. And that last year was Williams' feet took over the game. And I'll never forget, Ogeron, the week before that, tells me, man, he said, let me tell you about Williams. He said, Mike, he said, blocking him is like trying to catch a wet bar of soap. you can get your hands on it, but you're not going to get fully catch it well. And he was right. He just took over that game. He just blew everything up inside. And LSU was trying to double team him. At time they had three guys on him. He was beating that. That guy's not there for Alabama this year. And so that makes a difference, too. Both teams on the defensive side of the football, they're not getting that heavy rush like we have seen in the past from both teams. And I think that affects how you play opponents when you got two gunslingers as good as Tua and Joe Burrow. Can't cover forever. That's it. When you got those receivers, Alabama's probably got maybe 4 potential first-round pick receivers. You look at LSU with Jamar, who's, I think, a star player. Terrace is going to be back for the Alabama game. Justin Jefferson, just tremendous route runner, pass catcher. You got the speedster and Dillon, and Sullivan 6'6.5". So, and Moss is much more involved. So you've got some pressure points here, and you can't cover forever. But if you but I'll tell you, Ryan, if they stop the run, that puts a lot of pressure on Joe, and they'll put a lot of pressure on Tua the same way.
Auburn hasn't beaten LSU in Baton Rouge since 1999.
That's unbelievable.
You give them any chance to beat the Tigers this weekend? I mean, I don't.
No. I think the key there, and I think Ed's right about this, and Aranda said the same thing. This may be the best defensive front line play all year from a talent standpoint. So LSU's offensive line's got to win that battle. You give Joe a little bit of time, he's going to pick you apart. And their running game is getting better. That was something maybe early on in the season was a little bit off, but it's getting much better now. The secondary, I got to go after Auburn's secondary. I don't think they can cover those receivers. So you give Burrow time, he's going to pick you apart. And the flip side of it, my thing is stop out Auburn's rushing attack. That's been something LSU's did a really good job. I know a couple years ago when Kerryon was there, he had a really strong first half. They shut that down, and that was it. LSU made that comeback and ended up beating them. So I think LSU wins, and I think it's a double-digit win for the Tigers against Auburn. I think the Tigers in Tiger Stadium, it's going to be tough to beat them. And Ryan, that's unreal. 1999 been the last time they beat LSU in Tiger Stadium. And they got a lot of water roll under the bridge in that time. And there's been some crazy games, and it's normally been very close, down to the wire. We saw it last year. Cole Tracy comes in and kick one to win it. And we saw DJ Chalk made a huge play a couple years back on a punt return. LSU made a big defensive stand to end it. But I think LSU wins, and I think they win by more than 10.
Mike, what's happened to Georgia? What's going wrong? What's happening over there? It seems like that team's slipping.
I think, Ryan, the part of trying to press the field has not been there for them. They were a team that scared you a little bit because of the talent you had at wide receiver. Most of those guys are in the NFL today. Now you got a group of young guys, and even at the tight end position, where they're not stretching the field vertically. So you can do a lot of stuff defensively to kind of hone that in. I think they felt maybe they could just mash people in the rushing attack, people putting extra people up on the line of scrimmage to stop that. And they're saying, okay, throw it downfield. We dare you. Throw it downfield. And those young receivers just aren't getting open. And a lot of people blaming Jake, and it's easy to point the finger at the quarterback. Man, all I know is, in watching that film, those receivers aren't open. They're not getting open downfield, and that's what happens when you got a lot of young wideouts. Man, you can beat people in high school football. College is a different story. So I think that's a big part of it, almost simplification of what they've had to do offensively, because got a lot of talent, but it's young at the wide receiver and tight end spot. And, if I put extra people in the line of scrimmage, I'm just going to outnumber you. Defensively, I thought they were above average, but I didn't think this was going to be a great Georgia defense to begin with. So you kind of caught now in that. And the one thing with Kirby, I think he's done a pretty good job adjusting when things happen. But he's got to throw the football. He's got to get Jake opportunities to stretch the field vertically. If not, they're going to have more games like they did against South Carolina.
Coach O is listed as the 30th highest paid coach in college football. What a bargain.
Man, listen, I did an article last year. And so I got to interview him. We sitting down talking. He said, listen, I get the last thing on this article. I said, okay. So he goes through it and talks about his career. He leans over to me and he says, the first time in my life I'm making more money than you and Bobby Hebert. He said, you write it just like that, too. I said, okay. And listen, $3.5-4 million, that's a lot of money in Louisiana. Listen, he's like everybody else. He wants to get paid, but that's not the main gig for him. And he knew he had to prove it. He had to prove his worth. And he understood why he was getting paid the way he was getting paid. Like you said, Mike, $3.5-4 million in Louisiana. Just think about how far that goes if I was coaching in Los Angeles. It don't go the same way. You can live in Baton Rouge real good for that money. In Los Angeles, yeah, like you said, hey, you living good, but not quite as good as you living in Louisiana. So I think he sort of said, hey, I'm going to prove it to you. You don't have to give me that major contract. And he wasn't going to get it no matter what. But I'll earn my money later when it's all said and done. And, he signed a new deal this past spring. And I would think that he may get a few more dollars kicked in next year, too. But, that's not a huge thing for him. Listen, growing up how we grew up, man, we lived good. We didn't know about city life or nothing like that. And, it's a different world. And the one thing about him is he's like all of us from down here. He's tight with his cash, dude. He's real tight with it. So it'll last him a long time.
Well, I'm just saying the market, man.
Yeah.
He deserves.
And I get it.
I don't know if there's a better fit in college football.
It's a great fit. I don't know if he's at Missouri or if he's at Pitt or he's at Utah. This all works, but it works in Louisiana. He's one of us, and he understands this state. He knows how to recruit, and he told me this years back, before he was even at LSU. He said, as a head coach, I'm always going to get people sort of question me because I'm a grunt coach. He said, I coach defensive line. Now, how many of those guys are getting head coaches in major college football today? He said, you know what they want? They want the former quarterback, the pitching catch coach, secondary coach, the linebacker coach. But he said, how many offensive defensive line coaches we got out there? He said, there ain't a bunch of us. And so I think he knew that he wasn't going to be that guy. And he looking for the right spot and the right time, and it popped up here at LSU. So, money for him, listen, it makes a difference for all of us, but it's not major priority for him.
Mike Detillier, he does a show every single week, Silver Slipper there across St. Louis there in the state of Mississippi. When you talk about there and throughout WWL 870, Mike Detillier, as always, we appreciate your time. Hopefully we can get through Arkansas and Auburn, and will give us 2 weeks to set up this wonderful matchup between LSU and Alabama, Mike. Thank you again for your time.
Finally, CBS was lucky. They got that 2:30 game, which I think will be the most watched 2:30 game, regular season game in years.
Oh, it will be. It will be.
I don't think there's any question about it. And they got a little bit lucky with that and catching that in the afternoon. But man, it's just smoking up just like I think we all thought it might have before the season.
Oh, it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome. Hey, Mike, thank you again, man. Have an awesome week, my friend.
Thank you, Ryan.